Well, I can't hear them. Can we, is there volume on?
Can you hear us? Because we're not sure. We can't hear anything from you. And unfortunately, what little sign language I used to know at
The sign language.
all I know.
I know this and this.
Okay. Can you guys hear this?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, then we'll have to just, so somehow we're not getting read from our ceiling mics. We'll just have to use the individual mics. So give us a second to dial that up.
I used to buy batteries.
Yeah.
So those are picking up that's the reverb. The ceiling mic is picking up that.
Check.
Fun times.
Part of the challenge.
Yeah. Do you hear that, Megan? The reverb?
Yeah, but somehow it was picking up something. Now it's good. But I mean, it was working in some capacity.
Yeah.
Okay. If this works, this will be fine for now.
Can we turn off the ceiling?
They are off. If they were on, they'd be green.
So it's from the speaker. It's just the speaker.
I'm just gonna turn.
It's pretty loud and
yeah,
yeah,
turn
it
them down.
beats back. Okay, should we get, are we live?
Yes.
Live? Okay.
It's still red. It's all in live. It'll.
All right, we're
There we
working.
go. Of course. Just as soon as you're off there.
I'm going to introduce this and then we can make sure our technology is in order. So good afternoon. Welcome to the Thurston County Board of County Commissioners Board Work Session, Thursday, June 24th, 2021, 1:07 p.m. We're working through some technology challenges here, but we've got a 1-hour briefing set for human resources rates, live streamed through our Thurston County YouTube channel. And Maria Ponte from our director of our Human Resources Department will lead us through this, but let's make sure can everybody do a mic check real quick? Say something.
Test 1, 2, 3.
Say something.
You're hearing all commissioners? Okay, I see thumbs up. So let's go ahead and get started. We have until 2 p.m. and if we need it. And I'm going to turn it straight to Maria Aponte. Just to introduce, because my initial introduction wasn't recorded. So my name is Ty Menser, Chair of the Board of County Commissioners. To my left is Vice Chair Commissioner Gary Edwards. To my right is Commissioner Carolina Mejia. Our acting county manager today is Joshua Cummings. To Commissioner Edwards' left, and our Public Information Officer Megan Porter is with us. And we have a team of folks with Maria on the Zoom screen that she will introduce if needed at the appropriate moment. So Maria, directly to you.
Great, thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Maria, Human Resources Director. With me today is Tammy Devlin, our Risk Manager, and Senior Analyst Tara Wickline. Tammy, can you share your screen with our PowerPoint today?
Yep. Are you guys seeing that?
Yes.
Yeah. Can you make it a full screen? Terrific.
Perfect.
All right. So today's presentation is on the Human Resources Restricted Funds. Tammy, next slide. Great. So I will be presenting on the unemployment fund. Tara will be presenting on the Benefits Administration Fund, and Tammy will be presenting on the Risk Management Fund. And today we're seeking direction on the rates we are proposing as part of this year's budget process. And so unless you have any questions, I can get started right away.
Just jump right in. I think we're ready to
Great,
go.
all right. So our unemployment fund, the purpose of this fund is to create a reserve for future unemployment claims. Just for a historical perspective, our unemployment fund expenses have ranged from a high of $425,000 a year in 2011 to as low as $35,500 in 2019. We based the rate allocation on the county payroll. That's the funding mechanism. And our rate is currently 0.3%. It has been set at that for a number of years now. And that 0.3 is calculated on the total payroll for each office or department. In terms of administering the fund, we have 0.6 FTE, and that includes the salary, benefits, and employment taxes for that position. Our total budget goal is to have between 1.5 million and 2 million to cover up to 2 years of unemployment expenses and claims. And that would be in the event of a major layoff, which we define as laying off between 10% and 15% of our workforce. The last time we had any major layoffs was between 2008 and 2010 as a result of what is termed now as the Great Recession. Following that recession, the fund had dipped, and so we reset that rate. However, by 2018, that fund had a significant surplus. And here you can see our 10-year financial plan. And if you look at the beginning fund balance in 2018, it's on the upper left hand, it was $4.6 million. So we had obviously collected too much. And what we had to do that year was we rebated back $2.8 million. And then we had a ending fund balance of 1.8 million. And in 2019, it looks like we rebated back 250,000. And that put us in a good spot of 1.75 million. If you look at 2020, in 2019, you'll see that 35,000, which was very low. Unemployment was low. But in 2020, you'll see that it almost tripled at 91,000. I believe that was part of the pandemic. And while we were fortunate not to have had to furlough or lay anyone off, anybody that left our employment that did get laid off or furloughed would have been eligible to file claims that we would have had to then compensate. So we continue to monitor this fund. We're still proposing, like I said, the 0.3%. But you'll see by 2023, we'll reach that 2 million. And so at that point, I will work with the budget team to reassess whether we need to adjust that rate. And if so, what that will look like. Obviously, that's an estimate, and it will depend on any claims that we pay out through the end of this year and then through 2023. So are there any questions about this fund?
Yes.
Yes, Commissioner Edwards?
On page 4, where you go from 2018 on actual to 2019 on actual, what's that $3 million difference there? What's that about?
So what you'll see there is the rebate. So we were at the 4.6 million starting that fund. And so the 3 million is the salaries, benefits, and then that 2.8 that we refunded or rebated. And then that gave us that ending fund balance, which is more in target where we want this fund to be.
Okay, I guess, so rebated to who or what?
The mechanics of that, maybe Denise can explain, but because we had a surplus and we're not allowed to have a surplus like that,
Right.
What we ended up doing was rebating it back to the offices and departments, I believe.
So is that a,
Here's Denise, and she might be able to,
okay.
like I
Okay,
said,
here's
explain the
Denise. She's going to fill
technical.
us in.
Right. So what we did is we rebated, or we gave the offices and departments money back on a proportionate share. And so about roughly half of it went to the general fund, just in kind of averages, but we actually give them the money back.
Okay.
So, but I have a follow-up on that. So they get the money back, but like they, on an annual basis, have to revert any amount of money that's left. So did they get it, do we give it to them on December 30th and then they just have to turn and shuffle it back to us? Or did they get it in a time that they could use it or reallocate it or something?
Well, it goes back into the fund, basically. And it would have happened, because it would have happened as part of the budget build, would have been available at the beginning of the fiscal year.
Clear as mud.
Does that answer your question?
Well, the fiscal year, that confuses me because the county operates on a calendar year versus
Right.
the state that operates on a separate fiscal year that's like July or whatever. So what do you mean by that? It would have been available
Just
to them?
whatever sorry, I'm in the car. It's hard to hear. So whatever your fiscal year can refer to a calendar year, or whatever the fiscal year is of the entity. For in our case, it is the calendar year. So in that case, it would be available at the beginning of the calendar or the fiscal year.
Okay.
I don't remember that activity taking place is all. Did that take place as a separate budget issue or the following year and we took it out, or what happened on that? I'm just curious. I just don't recall exactly what happened here.
Commissioner Edwards is the only one that was here, so.
Yeah,
Denise?
go for it, Denise.
And Commissioner Edwards, I'd be happy to provide information just to refresh your memory on those.
Okay, maybe just a little memo, but if you send me something, send it to my seatmates as well, please. So.
And this is Josh. So just as a point of clarification, the target for the fund is around 1.8. Is that correct?
Between 1.5 and 2 million.
Okay. And so that from 4.6, like you said, that fund is not able to carry a surplus. And so you rebated that amount back to the organizations that had paid into it. And the general fund was about half of that, which is what got you down to the 1.8. And that was done through budget mechanics that Denise will engage with Commissioner Edwards on for history.
Correct.
Okay.
And I think that's an excessive fund balance, is more than we couldn't have a fund balance. You're only allowed so much, apparently.
Right. And that was 1.5 to 2 in that fund.
Yep, sounds good. I got it.
Okay.
All right. Well, if there's no questions on this fund, I'll turn this over to Tara, and she will discuss our Benefits Administration Fund.
Thanks, Maria. Good afternoon, everyone. Tara Wickline, Senior Benefits Analyst with HR. I'm going to provide an overview of the purpose of the Benefits Fund, as well as some history of how the rates have been determined and how they've changed over the past few years. The Benefits Fund pays for 2.7 FTEs and the operating expenses to administer the county's benefit programs. This also includes all payroll adjustments, including new hires, separations, retirements, updating salary charts when there's a COLA. The budget for this fund is determined by the salary, benefits, and taxes for the 2.7 FTEs, and the operating expenses such as professional services, which we include programming of our payroll system, Eden, in that, as well as miscellaneous expenses, small equipment, training, things like that. Once the budget has been determined, the cost to offices and departments is allocated by FTE. Expenses incurred by this fund are primarily due to employee changes, So larger offices and departments have more FTEs, and they tend to utilize the benefits resources more often than smaller offices and departments. The goal for this fund's ending fund balance is approximately $200,000. This amount has been determined to sufficiently cover 3 months of operating costs, as well as an amount to cover any unanticipated Affordable Care Act penalties. For 2022, we are proposing to restore the rate to a sustainable level. On the next slide, I will go over the proposed rates and provide some background to the proposed rates and the ending fund balance. So in previous years, the ending fund balance had grown much higher than, yes.
Hang on one second. I had a question from.
Are we going to take questions as we go along here? Can I ask a question or?
Oh, whatever you'd prefer.
Okay. The 200 reserved to cover 3 months operating costs and unanticipated liabilities on that American CARES Act, I guess. Anyway, so in the end, are you anticipating, is this a normal piece of business that we're anticipating on running afoul of something and having to pay it back?
No, but we've historically, well, since the Affordable Care Act was put into place, we've planned for that possibility. To my knowledge, we've never incurred a penalty, and we don't anticipate it. But
No. Okay. Have there been other times that there's a history that we needed to have this? I mean, I know we've never been through this virus before, but maybe some other funding source came through. Is that a normal practice that you would set aside that money rather than say put it in the rainy day fund? I mean, I'm just wondering. You know,
it's been our normal practice. I don't know if it's a normal practice, from other counties, other entities. It's how we've handled it in the past.
I know the bonding people give us a better bonding rate if we've got a better savings account, so to speak. And I don't know if this would contribute towards that better bonding rate if it was here versus if it was in our, aren't we setting aside $2 million or something like that, right? So if we need to do this, why wouldn't we do it $2,200,000 in that account and get a better rate and better showing? And does that make sense, what I'm asking you?
It does. I think that question is probably better directed at someone from the budget office because I'm not real familiar with the rainy day fund.
Okay, if you're going to ask them questions, could you ask another one and then we'll get, it'll come back to us, right? I thought that, when even on the unemployment fund, you're anticipating the possibility of 10 or 15 people being laid off. I thought something like that, wasn't it? That's what you're planning for. You'd plan for.
That's planned for, I believe, 10 to 15%.
10%, of course.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're talking a pretty good.
I was under the impression if we took money out of, I don't know if it was REIT or somewhere else, that we could not reduce services anywhere else. That was kind of a prerequisite to taking money from that account, that there's no, so why would we have to worry about it? Because you can't take money out and you can't lay anybody off because you're reducing services. So how does that fit into that question? Can you just maybe jot that down and maybe Robin can answer it when she gets back or something?
Yeah, I'll definitely make a note of that.
And generally, when we're contemplating layoffs, we start with each appointing authority in terms of where they can make those layoffs. And so that would be something that they would take into account, whereas the deficit. But yeah, if you would like more information on that, we can talk to Robin and get some follow-up answers for you.
Okay, and I guess if there's going to be that much money, I'd like to see that rainy day fund be the collector, if possible. We'd get more credit, get a better bond rating when we go out for bonds, stuff like that. So,
well, by RCW, we are required to have unemployment insurance, and so the county has elected to be self-insured, and part of that was, this was adopted. This fund is adopted by resolution, so it could be a little bit more complicated than just taking this pot of money and transferring it somewhere else. It is a restricted fund for that reason.
Yeah, I agree with that. I understand that. I just, maybe we could maintain the fund, but, you know, take $1 million of it and put it in the rainy day fund. Or so. I'm just, yeah, you asked if there's questions, and I always have questions, so go ahead.
Thank you.
Hold on, Commissioner Mejia's got one.
So you mentioned that the county's self-insured. What does that mean?
So under state law, every employer has to provide unemployment insurance. Primarily, if we weren't self-insured, we would be paying into the state fund, and that's actually at a higher rate. It's like 1.1%. And it's probably been in place for 30 years, where the Board of County Commissioners adopted self-insure for our unemployment. I think it lets us be more nimble and make these adjustments. The other benefit is that the employee, let's say we have to lay somebody off, they file their claim through the Employment Security Department. They process the claim. If eligible, they pay the claim, and then they bill us. And I'll tell you that this really worked well for us last year when there was the unemployment fraud. If you'll recall, we probably had close to 100 employees, and when we were billed, we didn't pay that bill because it was fraudulent, and that allowed us to get through that process. So I do think that this is a good strategy on the county's part.
Good to know. Thanks.
You're welcome.
So real quick, before we continue, Maria or Tara, will you restate the question that you're going to ask the budget office per Commissioner Edwards?
I know one of them is about putting the amount we have set aside for any possible ACA penalties, on whether that would work better to have that amount sitting in the rainy day fund rather than in the benefits fund. And then also, as far as the unemployment, there was a question about monies that come from the REAP fund, and that you can't reduce services from that, and how that works with unemployment and possibly laying people off, and how all that kind of ties together. That's the question that I understood.
Yep, I think that's about it.
Thank you. Keep going.
Okay. So with the benefits fund, in previous years, the ending fund balance, kind of the same as the unemployment fund had. It had grown to an amount that was much higher than it should have been. You can see that in 2018, the ending fund balance was over 600,000, which obviously higher than the 200,000 that we want in this fund. So at that point, we reduced the rate by 45% to begin bringing the balance down to that optimal level of 200,000. The plan at that time had been to keep the reduced rate for 2019 and 2020, and then begin raising it to a more sustainable level starting in 2021. However, with the uncertainty last year, we kept the rate the same for 2021 rather than raising anything. So for 2022, we are now asking to restore the rate to where it should be to support the expenses paid from the fund and keep the fund balance right around 200,000. The net difference between 2018, when we then reduced the rate by 45%, and the proposed 2022 rate is a negative 7%. So it's still lower than it was back then. So it looks like the rate has jumped substantially between this year and next year, but it's only because it has been kept artificially low to reduce that balance. Moving from 2022 to 2023, the proposed increase is only 1.3% over 2022. Does anyone have any questions about that?
Yes, could you just give an example of what this would be utilized, a situation that would be utilized as an expenditure out of this fund?
Well, part of it, well, myself, I'm an example. It pays completely for my salary, benefits, taxes. We also pay for all administrative fees. So for our flexible spending accounts, we pay a fee to Navia Benefit Services to handle all the flexible spending account claims. We also pay for our like long-term disability premiums. So all benefit associated cost premiums come out of this fund. We also pay for, this is where we pay our, I believe it's a subscription fee, but I could be wrong about that. But we pay for our portion of the usage of Eden, which is our current payroll system. That comes out of this fund. And then there's some budget in here for benefit staff for our usage of, copiers and small equipment, things like that.
Is this divided up amongst the different funds? So I'll just use the dedicated funds, maybe the road fund and the general fund. So general fund pays a certain percentage and road fund pays a certain percentage. Is that the way it works?
Well, with this one, we allocate it by FTE. So if we were allocating out, $100 and a department had 10 employees, they'd have to pay $10 of that. So it's allocated by FTE. It's up to each office and department to split whatever their share is by the funds in their office and department.
So just as an example, like the health department for an FTE, maybe that's dedicated funds, and a sheriff's office employee is general fund. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of the way it would work then?
Correct, yes.
Okay. Good enough. Thank you.
Oh, absolutely.
Yep, I think we're good on Fund 5060. Thank you, Tara.
All right, thank you. I will send it over to Tammy.
Good afternoon, everyone. Tammy Devlin, County Risk Manager here. We're covering the Insurance Risk Fund 5050. This covers the administration costs of myself and 2 risk analysts and a smidgen of some admin from HR. We run the safety program for the county. We also, through this fund, we purchase the insurance for the county. That would be general liability, property insurance, your cyber liability insurance, and the services that we also provide are the risk management and loss control services. On the next slide, you'll see that we'll have a nice fund balance, but that's actuarially estimated, required by WAC to pay for any potential liabilities that the county might have. And we hire an actuary to actually determine what that value is. This is what our 10-year financial plan looks like. We pretty much allocate out the admin costs, the costs of the insurance premiums, and we have a third-party administrator to help us administer workers' compensation. And you'll see on the costs down here, you see charges 54. That's the lion's share of that. Our fund has not changed significantly in the last, I'd say, 7-8 years. The fluctuation in those costs there are the estimates for our liability insurance, our property insurance premiums. Other than that, we have not had any significant changes. You'll see between 2020 and 2021, there's a 2.1 cost and charge 54 line, and that goes up to 2.3 million. After we figure our budget out each year, I don't get the insurance billing for that year until like July. So this year, when I estimated what our budget was for last year for this year, I won't actually get that bill until July of this year. So when we did our budget, we've got a significant increase. As you know, the insurance market has significantly hardened, especially in cyber and GL, general liability. So we saw like a 40% increase in our insurance premiums. So the difference between 2021, 2022, I'm estimating about a 12% increase in costs. And that's allocated out to all the funds, primarily by FTE, because that's where the liability lies. And then we do a small portion on our general liability for a surcharge. And we charge that out based on frequency and severity of their claims. But it gives you, if you look at the ending fund balance, the 4.3, we want about 4.5 million, something like that in our ending fund balance. And that's what the actuary says, hey, that's a comfortable number to have.
And we're going to be at 4.38, right?
Yes. Yep.
So we're kind of on target.
Yep. We are right on target.
The last risk management function I attended, I think they said, I don't know, that we were lumped in with California, Oregon, and us now somehow on risk. Is that reflected in here?
Yes, it is. We had our property insurance significantly went up 40% last year. I'm estimating another 15%. We were able to negotiate with the risk pool a 2-year renewal. And so we slid by in 2019 and 2020. I'm estimating maybe another 15% increase. And I'm hoping that we've had very little claims on the property side. So I'm hoping that that'll maintain pretty swell. We'll see probably a little bit of increase in our cyber liability because there's obviously been some activity around that. But we'll be doing a briefing in July after I get our insurance rates with you folks. So we'll have a real good idea of what our insurance premiums are going to be this year and next. So I'm basing it based on the risk pool meeting and what the brokers had to say about their marketing trip.
Does that kind of cover the total expenditures from, I'm just looking at estimated on 2022 and 2023 total expenditures? There's about $300,000 difference there.
Yep,
Is that
that's what I'm estimating.
That's what you're getting. Okay, got it.
Tammy, I'd say in the last 2 to 3 years, like the time I've been on the board. Oh, sorry, my mic is off. In the last time I've been on the board, say 2.5 years, I would say we've had maybe half a dozen, litigation situations where we had to discuss, strategy and potential settlement. Is that kind of a typical number, or is that a low number, or is that a high number for kind of, how's the county done, would you say, for those types of claims over the last few years?
I think we've done very well. The risk pool actually rates all their members. And then there's like an experience modification rate, if you will. And ours has been typically one of the lower ones. And so they base that on the number of claims you have and then the frequency of the claims. And they compare that to all the other members. And our rate's been significantly low. So I think we've done a really good job of getting in those, doing the defense that we need to. If we need to settle, we settle right away. Sometimes it's a business decision, but we've got the taxpayers' dollars, and we're trying to do good stewardship by that. So.
Okay, great. Commissioner Mejia, anything? I guess we're good with that one.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Well, that is the last slide. And so if there's any other questions that we can answer today, we have some follow-up to do. We will consult with budget and we will get some responses out.
Okay, I think you've got what you need and we have what we need. Appreciate everybody's time.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you all.
You just need
Have a great afternoon.
Maria?
Say again?
You need a formal thumbs up or anything?
I believe so. If we could get it, then we have permission to move forward.
This is all about the cost of doing business, right? Right?
Correct.
Okay.
We have one thumb, 3 thumbs.
3 thumbs.
Thank you, commissioners. Have a great afternoon.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.